We were given a brief recap of all we discussed during the week, and one of the topics was on the impact of the increase in price on commodities in Nigeria, the impact on the Nigerian economy, and we used the hike in price of soft drinks, you know, as our anchor, as our case study. We see that in Nigeria today, that has become, in fact, if you live in Nigeria, Lagos especially, you see that the price of soft drinks moved from 200 naira as it used to be as of December last year to about 250, and now is about 300 naira. So we're looking, just talking generally about the increase in prices and the reasons, you know, for this surge, basically. And I would like for you to touch a bit on that before we go into what we have for the day.
Yes, thank you. Naturally, we would expect that prices in Nigeria today, given the environment, given the circumstance, given the economic conditions, that prices will go up. There are many drivers. Those that we know, very popular ones are, for instance, inflation. Inflation is extremely high, notching 30%. Terrible, terrible for an economy like our size of our economy. Certainly, there's the devaluation, the exchange rate that is impacting, and all of those are also driven by, for instance, the cost of energy, petrol particularly, and diesel. They are runaway costs, and that has impacted literally everything. Transportation is impacted, even service is impacted. Anything and everything is impacted as a result of those, if you like, cost drivers. Depending on what it is you're looking at, there are implements that are needed for that particular product or service. Those also drive costs. Then there's labor, then there's the Nigerian factor, the greed factor. So there are a lot of things that come together, if you like, and they are impacting on costs, absolutely, particularly household goods.
Now, there was a conversation about the CEO of FMDQ Group, Bola Onodele Koko, and he advised the CBN to explore creative ways in which they can increase or, I beg your pardon, clear out the foreign backlog, the foreign exchange backlog, you know, and the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, also revealed that the CBN is seeking $1.5 billion from the World Bank, you know, to ease the dollar shortage in the country. Now, we were looking at how the CBN, you know, the CBN is seeming to be between the devil and the red blue sea, trying to clear out the backlog as well as ensure that we have enough funds in our forex reserve. I would like your thoughts on that.
Obviously, it's from what one understands, it's quite tricky. I don't seem to really grapple how we got ourselves into this situation. To be honest, we have to call it what it is. It is a mess. It is an embarrassment. First, we gave sovereign guarantees and asked manufacturers and asked foreign direct investors and asked other persons that are investing in Nigeria to come in, bring in their own funds, and they kept their own side of the bargain, and we are not keeping our own side of the bargain. It's a promise. It's what in Hausa is called an amana. It's a trust. It's a custodial thing. You made a sovereign promise to people, and when the time comes, we are failing them. First, I would say it's an embarrassment. Definitely, the CBN needs to come to terms to that and solve that one as a matter of priority. Secondly, people came in with what they call, the CBN themselves call the CCI, the capital importation. Now, when you come in with your capital importation, they receive your US dollars, foreign currency, whatever it is, euros, pounds sterling, any other, and they convert it for you at the government rate, with the understanding that after you've done your investment, 3 years, 2 years, 5 years further down the line, you are allowed to repatriate your funds at the same government rate. And when the time came, they're not allowed. We're not keeping to our own side of the bargain. It's an embarrassment. Certainly, they have to do something about that. What they need to do, they need to maybe get their own thinking. I mean, think way, way, way out of the box and do something to sort out this backlog. I mean, far it from me to begin to suggest to those experts in the central bank and all their advisors and all the persons involved to say, okay, go this way. These are the economic policies. These are the practices that you should need to adopt in order to address, say, for instance, the manufacturing wahala, or say, for instance, the airline wahala and embarrassment. So absolutely, that is impacting also on, if you like, ongoing processes, ongoing activities in Nigeria, down to simple basic things like farmers and that produce our basic needs, importation of goods. Nigeria is basically an import-dependent nation, an economy that depends most virtually, literally everything that we do is dependent on imports, which means foreign exchange, which means you have to source it somehow, either in the parallel market, whatever we call it, black market, or in the official market. So absolutely, government needs to step up, seriously, seriously step up.
The government needs to step up. We also talked a bit about the hike in price in pharmaceutical drugs, and that was really alarming because, I mean, drugs are basic for human health, and once that is not easily accessible and affordable, there is a big problem. And we spoke about it because Nigerians have called out, you know, some Nigerians with severe medical challenges, you know, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer even, you know, are finding it difficult to get their drugs. Now, isn't this more like a death sentence when you can't afford drugs to keep you alive? Now, we were able to talk a bit about it, but I would like your thoughts on it before we go on.
Obviously, it's life-sustaining. It's incredible. Drugs, as it is, our society, we're yet to get to a point whereby most of our drugs are sourced within. We thank our local traditional healers and some of the ingenious ideas we have to address some of the issues here, but the vast bulk of all our medical needs are sourced by drugs that are, if you like, so to speak, Western oriented. Now, even if you manufacture some drugs here in Nigeria, and we do, and we raise our hearts and we thank the manufacturers that are producing some medications here, Western type medication here in Nigeria, still their implements, still some of those materials they need, still some of their raw materials and byproducts are imported. The majority of the drugs that we use in the country are imported. If you look at the pharmaceutical industries, take simple things like vaccines, children vaccines. There are over 16 different kinds of children vaccines, just children alone. And this is day old. From day old to maybe 6 months, 1 year old, there are over 16 of those. Now, when you take all of those into consideration, you find that there are how many children? Do the mathematics and begin to see the size and enormity of the tasks that we have. Now, that's not to say, I mean, we're not even touching other illnesses, and there are thousands of illnesses. So at the end of the day, definitely it's impacting on people. I mean, it could be seen to be melodramatic to say, for example, that it's a death sentence, but in all honesty, that's what it is. It is the survival of the fittest, and it's only the fit that can survive. Only those that have means that are able to maybe purchase some of those highly needed medication. You mentioned cancer. Men, the big issue for men are vast, for instance, prostrate. The same we can pick on any particular area of ill health, of our well-being, and we can look at it, and it's huge. So absolutely, foreign exchange is impacting on it. And the fact that we're not producing within here, the fact that we have energy issues, the fact that we have logistics issues, the fact that we have supply chain issues, all of these come together, combine together, and exacerbate situations that we have, and therefore are leading to unnecessary, needless deaths.
But what would you highlight as a solution, an immediate solution? Because Nigerians, are seeking for help desperately. They are in desperate need of help. What would you prefer, or suggest that the government does in this time to help Nigerians, to prevent them from just dying like flies by the day?
Yeah, I get your point. Unfortunately, there's no magic wand where we snap our fingers and something comes in and something happens. It will take some time, unfortunately. Now, naturally, it's been said before, let's beef up our manufacturing. Let's get retro drugs in. I mean, let's get licenses to produce some of the cheaper drugs here in the country. Our manufacturing concerns, our pharmaceuticals, they're geared. We need funding, obviously. The banks is not just a government thing. Government can create an enabling environment, absolutely, and we need that. But we need the private sector to come in as well. We need funding to come in, financing to come in, banking to come in, and maybe other FDIs, foreign direct investors. But the key thing is we have to be our own saviors. We're not saying that we reinvent the wheel, absolutely no. We're not saying that we look inward only, absolutely no. What we're saying is we just simply copy and paste. These models are there already. They have been tried and tested. We're lucky that a lot of all the production systems, the production process, the production machinery, and the entire value chain is already sorted for us. All we need to do is plug and play, copy and paste. But we have to have the goodwill. We have to have the enabling environment. We have to have government support. We have to have public sector, private sector coming in and investing and believing in ourselves and changing our economy. Nobody is going to come in and do those things for us. We have to now have a different mindset and orientation. And government has to be the driver. Government has to come in good faith. And when government comes in good faith, they genuinely, seriously drive that forward. And when they drive that forward, private sector comes in with their expertise, with their funding, and with their passion, and then we'll be able to seize the opportunities and save lives, as it were.
Indeed, that is very imperative. Now, I would like for you to also talk a bit about the global disruptions as we have it now in the food supply chain due to the unrest in the Red Sea as we have it. Now, what is the impact? Because, of course, the Red Sea is the trade route through which major food commodities are transported globally. Now there is a crisis in that exact location. What is the impact of it on our economy here in Nigeria, and how can we get out of it as quickly as possible? Because Nigeria is already struggling with severe inflation rates. Almost every commodity is now sold at exorbitant prices. Now, how do we prevent ourselves from being impacted greatly, by this crisis at the Red Sea?
Thank you. By virtue of our location, our geography, to a point, I think we would not say we're insulated. We definitely are impacted because our raw material come from some other place as well. So the Red Sea mostly impacts, if you like, typically Western countries, Europe and whatnot, all of the 28 European countries and whatnot, but to a lesser extent us, because if you look at the route, the trade routes, goods coming in from either Europe, they can come in through other means, other routes. Goods coming in from, say, Southeast Asia, they come in via South Africa and back up to us here in West Africa. So definitely they impact on us, but not as much as they would impact on Western Europe. Having said that, naturally, it impacts on prices, it impacts on delivery timelines and dates and dates. It impacts on wastages, because some of those goods, they're time sensitive. So if there's a shelf life for a particular product, particular goods or service, naturally to impact. It impacts on delivery of subsequent services and or products and or, if you like, construction work here in us. And when there is that, then there are timeline delays. And when there are timeline delays, there are cost delays and increases in prices. Look at the road construction, for instance, the Kaduna Abuja road. Do you see the exorbitant increase on the price? Five-fold increase on that? Unbelievable, unbelievable increase in prices. So of course, there's the impact of inflation, there's the impact of foreign exchange, there's the impact of increasing costs generally, of the energy factor that comes in. Naturally, there's the profit factor. So it impacts on the trade routes, the Red Sea Wahala impacts on us just as much as, which is a security thing. The security thing also comes up and impacts on us here at home. Transportation of simple, basic household horticultural things, tomatoes, vegetables, and whatnot.
All right, now bringing it back home, how can Nigerians cope with this inflation situation as we are currently facing it? How do we cope? Because, and of course, is there going to be light at the end of this tunnel? At what point do you see Nigeria coming out of this anytime soon?
One of the things that I see and I'm absolutely impressed and admire is the people. We manage things incredibly, unbelievably well. So we have, if you like, a thick skin in that respect. Having said that, that's not to say that we should be taken for granted. There's a limit to anything and everything. Everybody has to know their limitations. And we are stretching our people, and increasingly our people are extremely resilient, we're extremely ingenious, we're extremely innovative, we're extremely creative. These are ways in which we have been coping, and we are suffering. If you look at Nigerians, the majority of Nigerians, sorry to say that they are emaciated. It's okay to be slim. Of course, we're not saying we should be overweight, but when you are dried up, that's totally different. These are clear indicators. And Nigerians have been doing that and have been stomaching this. We've been kind of, if you like, taking on the burden. And government, I don't know what are the issues. We need to absolutely turn away, turn round the situation. No one is going to. Goodwill is not going to. Prayer is not going to help us. All of this claiming it, declaring it, and hoping that God will wave a magic wand and solve our own issues is not going to happen. We have to. We've been blessed. We're the 6th or 7th at most blessed nation on earth. There are 200 odd other countries that are not as privileged as us. We cannot keep depending on God. God has given us all that is needed and required for us to get up our backsides and do something. Government has to completely take on. This government, the current regime, has to honestly be absolutely passionate, has to be genuine, has to come in good faith, has to drive things through, irrespective of whose interest is. If the national interest is at risk, we need to have that passion, that, if you like, patriotic spirit, and say that, look, enough is enough. You're driving people to a point whereby there will be civil revolt. There is hunger in the country. In this 2024, there will be extreme hunger in Nigeria for a variety of reasons. We need to really get our act together, get up our backsides, and do something. Sorry to use those kind of phrases and expressions, and do something to save this nation. This nation is one of the greatest nations that God has blessed on earth, and we are failing in our duty as custodians. We need to wake up.
What are your first thoughts about this hike in price of rice?
It's a given that prices will go up. Given the exchange rates, the runaway foreign exchange rate, given inflation, given the cost of production, given the antecedent costs, for instance, petrol costs and transportation and all of that, simple things like you say, the paddy rice and whatnot. I mean, to some extent, they need to water some of the farms. The pumping machines, they're imported. Petrol is needed. Engine oil is needed. Labor is needed. And bags, they need to be produced in the production process, the refining process, the rice milling, the storage. All of that is logistics and other antecedent cost of energy and whatnot. So ultimately, yes, there has to be an increase. And I think the 25 to 40% increase, if we have only that, we're lucky, in all honesty. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. Look at the security situation. People are not even farming. So on top of all of those cost increases, there is scarcity because farmers are not allowed or able to go to the farms for security reasons. So at the end of the day, definitely 2024 will be a tough year for individuals, for Nigerians, in terms of like food security.
All right. Now, Nigeria imports about 2 million tons of paddy rice, you know, on a year-on-year basis. And of course, most of our importation is from China. Now, how can Nigeria be more self-sufficient when it comes to rice?
By encouraging it, enabling it. I'm not one that is for banning of importation. We should allow importation, definitely. Alongside that, we should absolutely seriously step up our production internally. We should create greater enabling environments. We should stimulate younger people to go into farming. Younger people are realizing when you have a degree, and so what if you have a degree? Most of our degrees provide or produce unemployable graduates anyway. You're not skilled for anything. So, and even if you're skilled for something, we know what your salary will be in the next 30, 40 years. Pick any course in the university, and I will be able to tell you how much you will be earning in the next 30 years. But if you go into, say, independent enterprises like in the agro-allied sector, then definitely you will more likely be able to earn far more higher level of incomes at the end of the day. So we need to create an enabling environment whereby we massively produce internally. And once we do that, once we encourage younger people to get back into agriculture, when you look at there are 7 key core things that are impacting on agriculture. Mechanization is one. We are still agrarian. Why is that? We need to fully mechanize. Funding, we have talked about that, and lack of capital. The aging workforce is another factor which I just mentioned about encouraging young people. 70% of our population are all young and energetic. Let's encourage them back into the agriculture. Marketing is another. Storage is another, because some of our produces have short shelf life. Then the value chain addition is also another. So there are broadly 7 major things that we need to get our act together on, grapple with those things. And once we're able to grapple with those things, then we're more likely to be able to compete with the importation, the foreign import, in terms of quality, in terms of cost, in terms of preference and preferability of that foreign rice or whatever it is.
All right. Now, compared to the paddy rice and rice being imported into Nigeria, we have locally produced rice as well, and they don't seem to be cheaper. They are even, some are even more expensive. Talking about the likes of the fada rice is even more expensive than the rice being imported. What is the challenge, and what can be done to ensure that at least the rice we produce here, we should get it at an affordable rate?
No, not necessarily. The means of production, the way in which we go about producing, is mechanical. We're not mechanized. We're not efficient. So, as a matter of fact, we're not even effective, let alone being efficient. We're not cost effective. We're producing it at a far more higher cost in a longer time. Now, another aspect of that, remember, our rice is more organic. Understand this. There are hybrid rice, genetically modified rice, and there is organic rice. Our rice is better quality rice. We tend to confuse a lot of these things. We have far more better quality rice. It takes longer to mature, which means it's a better rice. I mean, the easiest example to give to listening audiences, when you have, say, a broiler chicken and local chicken, and now we have what is called Noila chicken. That's a crossbreed between the broilers and our local chickens. Our local chickens take forever to grow and mature. Broilers take mostly 8 weeks, 9 weeks, if you are very generous as a producer. But then the taste of the meat, the potency of the meat, the smell of the meat, same with beans. There are fast yielding beans variety and more slower yielding variety. So at the end of the day, you find that the longer lasting yielding variety is better, is more organic. Our rice is more organic. You cannot expect it to cost the same as if like hybrid rice. Plus our costs and means and process of production is far more higher. So at the end of the day, when you're mechanical, when you use machinery, when you're more commercial, when you have better logistics, when you have better supply chain operations, better storage facility, less wastage. At the end of the day, you are more likely to add to the bottom line, to the return on the investment. So what do? We instead are using more mechanical ways and means of production. So all of these add up to the cost, plus the fact that our rice is better quality rice.
All right. Okay, so now, Dr. Francis, one of the challenges highlighted by the sellers of rice, that's the from the producers. You know, some of them complain of flooding and drought as one of the challenge impacting their harvest of rice. What can be done immediately, you know, to help mitigate or help, you know, provide solution to this challenge?
Interesting. you highlighted opposite issues and challenges, flooding and drought. Now, look at societies, look at cultures. There are some cultures, other cultures I mean, there are cultures that have drought literally every time, 4 or 5 years without any rain. There are cultures that they have rain throughout 10 months in the year, and they have waterlogged areas. Yet these two societies, these two cultures of drought and excess water, they still both produce sufficient quantities of a commodity. Why are we making excuses? These are all situations whereby we can manage it. It's all down to us, human management. The capital, us, the desire to really genuinely, ingeniously, creatively address the challenges that are facing us. Take the issue of drought. That's actually easier to solve. We have underground water basins, seas and masses, hundreds of kilometers of underground water tables. What are we doing about it? We're not even exploring and identifying them. We know of people that have gone to different places, different countries, our colleagues, our friends, Nigerians, that can identify water for us, underground seas, that we can address the drought issue like this, so cheap. And yet we're not doing that. Like, look at the drought, I mean, the flooding that we had, the Mambila Dam. For goodness sake, that is a man-made, that is a human-created disaster waiting to be happening. Okay, there are other drought areas. Our planning laws and our construction of homes and houses and where human settlement is, and where it should not be for human settlement, why it should be canals and channels for water to pass. Why are we flouting those laws? Why are we not imposing and insisting that we abide by laws that govern our environmental protection? So at the end of the day, we are the creators of some of the challenges that we have. Other societies have far more bigger challenges. They have far less resources, far less ingenious ideas, and yet they're able to cope and deal with some of their challenges. How can we then come and begin to make excuses and complain? At the end of the day, we are the masters. That's the point I was making earlier on. When I say we have to take our own fate into our own hands, our own destiny is for us. We are the sixth most blessed nation on earth, and we make excuses. Our leadership is failing us, left, right, and center. Pick any level, be it at the communal level, be at the local government level, be at the state level, be it at the Senate, the so-called members of parliament, be it at the senatorial, be it at the federal level, we're all failing society. We are not being good custodians, trustworthy custodians of that which we have been entrusted with. It's not about human intellect. We already have the intellect in Nigeria. It's not about talent. We have the talent. It's not about resources. We have the resources. It's not about ingenious ideas. There are ingenious ideas. It's cut and paste. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. At the end of the day, it's about the will, the desire, and we coming in good faith, wanting to genuinely take this country to the next level.